In a small village in the hills of Peru, a man named Marco hears whispers in the wind. They say the mountain spirits are angry. But in the bustling streets of Lima, people are more afraid of the next earthquake than the unseen forces of nature. What do these fears tell us about urban life compared to rural existence? Fear manifests differently depending on where you are. In rural areas, it's often tied to the land, the traditions, the myths that have been passed down through generations. In urban settings, it's shaped by concrete walls, crowded places, and the constant hum of city life. The fear of the unknown morphs into anxiety about survival, crime, and the chaos that a bustling city brings. Take, for example, the story of a woman named Sofia living in a small town in Spain. Every summer, she hears the tales of La Llorona, the weeping woman who roams the rivers at night, searching for her lost children. These stories invoke a primal fear, a warning to keep children close and to respect the water's edge. In contrast, in Madrid, the fear is more about the city's fast pace and the risk of being left behind. The stories of La Llorona fade into the background, overshadowed by the real dangers of pickpockets and traffic accidents. This contrast raises the question, why do we fear what we fear? In the countryside, fears often arise from a belief in the supernatural, a connection to nature that urban dwellers might not share. Silence in rural areas signifies a truce between man and nature. It's almost sacred. You can feel it. But in urban jungles, silence is often a sign of danger. The quiet in a city can mean something has gone wrong, that something is lurking just out of sight. In the heart of the Amazon, a young boy named Pedro believes in the spirits of the forest. They guide him, protect him. His fear is woven into the fabric of his life. He knows that disrespecting the forest's sacred laws can lead to dire consequences. But in Sao Paulo, a city filled with millions, fear is rooted in the rapid pace of life. It's the fear of being overwhelmed, of losing oneself in the crowd. This isn't just a cultural quirk. It's a reflection of how communal beliefs shape individual actions. In rural areas, the community adheres to traditions that bind them together in times of crisis. They share stories, rituals, and warnings passed down through generations. In urban settings, the connection is more fleeting, often replaced by a sense of isolation. The shared fears become more individualistic, more personal. Think about it. But wait, let's dive deeper into this. In many rural communities, folklore serves as a warning system. In Japan, for instance, the concept of yurei, restless spirits, triggers a deep-seated fear of disturbing the dead. Families honor their ancestors, believing failure to do so invites misfortune. This practice creates a community-wide fear that maintains order. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, the fear shifts towards urban legends like the Kukase Kana, the slit-mouthed woman. Here, the fear isn't about disturbing the dead, but about being caught in the chaos of a bustling city, where anonymity breeds danger. Now, let's zoom out and consider the historical context. Fear is not just a contemporary issue. It's been evolving. The collective memory of a community shapes its fears. In the rural settings of Eastern Europe, tales of witches and spirits stem from a time when nature was seen as both a provider and a threat. But in cities, historical fears morph into modern anxieties. The past haunts the present, creating a layered experience of fear that's more complex than simply being scared of the dark. What's fascinating is how these fears influence behaviors. In rural areas, you might find people performing rituals to appease spirits or protect their crops, like the farmers in Brazil who hold ceremonies to ensure a good harvest. They believe that if they honor the earth, it will honor them back. On the flip side, urban dwellers may seek comfort in technology. They rely on apps for safety or social networks to find community. Their fears push them towards modern solutions rather than traditional ones. Let's not forget about the sensory experiences that heighten these fears. Picture this. In the quiet of a rural night, the sound of rustling leaves can send shivers down your spine. It's the unknown, the fear of what lurks beyond the light. In contrast, in a city, the sounds of sirens and traffic can drown out the fear. Urban life desensitizes us, but it also amplifies other fears, like the fear of missing out or being judged. But here's where it gets interesting. The stories we tell about fear often reflect our surroundings. In the rural South of the United States, tales of the Boo Hag serve as a cautionary story about trust and betrayal. These narratives nurture a sense of community and caution. In urban areas, horror movies often reflect societal anxieties about technology and isolation. The fears are similar but manifest differently because of the environment. Now, let's talk about a specific example. In rural India, the story of the Churail, a vengeful female spirit, warns people to treat women with respect. In contrast, urban Indian cities have their own fears, like the fear of being out late, which is often tied to the threat of violence. It's a different type of fear, but still deeply rooted in cultural beliefs. What about when things go wrong? In 1992, a 3-year-old girl named Lina went missing in Bahia. The entire community rallied, searching every corner, every shadow. The fear was palpable, a collective dread that something sinister lurked nearby. In urban areas, a missing child might spark concern, but the response often feels more detached. The anonymity of city life can diminish the urgency of communal action. And think about the psychological impact. Fear can linger long after the event has passed. The people in that small Brazilian community might carry the memory of Lina's disappearance for years, shaping their behaviors and beliefs. But in a bustling city, life moves fast. People may forget, but the scars remain. The trauma is buried under layers of new experiences, yet it still affects how they interact with the world. Now, as we explore these narratives, we must consider the role of fear in shaping identity. In rural settings, fear is often tied to the land and community. It shapes how people see themselves and their place in the world. In urban settings, identity is often fragmented by the fast pace and constant change. The fear of losing oneself becomes a part of the urban experience. This brings us to the question of how communal beliefs shape individual actions in times of crisis. In rural areas, the collective fear can lead to a strong sense of unity. When something threatens the community, everyone comes together. In urban settings, the response can vary. Some may band together, while others retreat into isolation. And let's not overlook the role of technology. In rural areas, stories are passed down orally. They're shared around fires, during gatherings, creating a tight-knit community. In cities, fear spreads through social media. Viral stories can amplify anxieties, often creating panic over minor incidents. The digital age has transformed how we experience fear, often distorting it into something larger than life. So where does that leave us? There's a richness in the way fear is expressed across different cultures and environments. While the manifestations may differ, the underlying emotions remain the same. The fear of loss, danger, and the unknown binds us together, regardless of where we live. But let's take a moment to reflect on this. Think about the stories you grew up with. What fears shaped your childhood? Were they tied to your environment? Did they revolve around the supernatural or more tangible threats? As we go deeper into these narratives, we will uncover even more layers to how fear shapes our lives, drawing connections between cultures, communities, and personal experiences. Now, before we continue, if this kind of exploration into fear resonates with you, consider subscribing. You don't want to miss what's coming next. In the next segment, we'll dive into specific examples from different countries, examining how folklore and communal beliefs shape fear in unique ways. We'll dissect the stories that bind communities together in times of crisis and the historical contexts that give those fears life. But first, let's pause for a moment. What if the way we perceive fear isn't just a reflection of our surroundings, but a deeper understanding of ourselves? What happens when we face those fears head-on, rather than allowing them to shape our lives quietly? Let's keep that in mind as we journey forward into the world of fear, exploring its many forms and meanings across cultures and regions. And remember, this is just the beginning. In our next part, we'll peel back the layers of specific fears tied to cultural beliefs, examining how these narratives influence individual actions and community responses. But for now, let's sit with the idea that fear is a universal experience that shapes us all, whether we dwell in the shadows of a rural landscape or navigate the neon lights of a city. And you know what? It's about to get even more interesting. Stick around. Fear isn't just a shadow lurking in the corners of our minds. It's a reflection of our deepest vulnerabilities and the stories we tell ourselves. These narratives weave through our lives, often binding us to our ancestors and shaping our identities. In rural communities, fear can manifest from the land itself, the unpredictability of nature, the grinding realities of farming, and the ever-looming threat of drought or disaster. In urban settings, fear often morphs into the anxieties of anonymity, the chaos of city life, and the dangers that come with it. But it's not just about where we live. The stories we inherit from our families, the folklore that circulates in our communities, and the personal experiences that leave scars all play a part. For instance, think about the tale of Antonio from Parana. His struggle with a failed bean crop due to drought wasn't just an agricultural problem. It was a story of survival, of a community grappling with the unpredictability of nature, and the fear that comes with it. The urgency of his situation resonates with anyone who has faced a critical moment where everything hangs in the balance. Now, let's pivot to a broader perspective. Across cultures, fear can take on various forms. In some societies, it's deeply tied to supernatural beliefs, while in others, it's more about tangible threats. For example, in many indigenous cultures, stories about spirits or ancestral beings serve to remind individuals of their place in the universe and the consequences of their actions. These narratives often contain moral lessons, guiding people on how to live in harmony with the world around them. But here's where it gets tricky. Not every story of fear is universal. What terrifies one community may not even raise an eyebrow in another. This contrast can lead to misunderstandings and even conflict. When people from different backgrounds come together, their disparate fears can clash, creating tension. And often, this tension isn't just about the fear itself, it's about the beliefs that underpin those fears. Take, for example, the story of Lina, the 3-year-old girl who went missing in Bahia in 1992. Her disappearance sparked a wave of fear and uncertainty in her community. The steep hill near her home became a symbol of danger, illustrating how fear can transform a familiar into a site of horror. People began to look at their surroundings differently, seeing threats where they once felt safe. Now, let's not forget the role of communal beliefs in shaping these fears. When a community collectively believes that something is dangerous, that belief can manifest into reality. This isn't just a psychological phenomenon, it's a social one. Communities often bond over shared fears, creating a sense of unity. But they can also become insular, rejecting outsiders and their differing perspectives on fear and danger. As we look deeper into these cultural narratives, a pattern emerges. Many fears are rooted in the natural world, but they are amplified by human experiences and societal norms. Think about the role of folklore. It's a good tool that not only entertains but also instills caution and respect for the unknown. This is where fear intersects with education, teaching generations about the dangers that lurk beyond their immediate understanding. But here's the twist. What if we reframed our understanding of fear? Instead of viewing it solely as a negative force, what if we considered it a catalyst for growth? Facing fear head-on can lead to resilience, innovation, and even creativity. It's the discomfort that drives people to seek solutions, to adapt, and to overcome. Consider Elias, the night watchman at a disused hydroelectric plant in Sao Paulo. During a severe storm, he chose not to evacuate as the water level rose. His decision wasn't just about bravery, it was informed by his knowledge of the plant and its sounds. This highlights how fear, when paired with experience, can lead to informed choices rather than panic. So what does this all mean for us? It suggests that fear is not merely something to be avoided. It's a complex experience that can guide us, teach us, and even unite us. As we look at the fears that shape our lives, let's consider how they can also us. This exploration into fear is just the beginning. There's so much more to use about how our fears manifest and how they can be transformed. If this kind of exploration resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe. You'll want to stay tuned for what's coming next. Now, as we move forward, let's remember that while fear can be isolating, it's also a shared experience. Each story, whether it's about a drought, a missing child, or a dark night at a hydroelectric plant, connects us to something greater. It's a thread that runs through humanity, binding us in our shared vulnerabilities and collective strength. As we peel back the layers of fear's cultural significance, we'll see how it influences individual actions and community responses. The next segment dives into specific examples from different countries, examining the unique folklore and communal beliefs that shape fear. But before we wrap up, think about your own fears. What stories have been passed down in your family? How do they shape your understanding of the world? These questions can lead us to profound insights about ourselves and the communities we belong to. So, let's sit with this idea a moment longer. Fear isn't just a reaction, it's a form of communication, a way to express our deepest anxieties and desires. The narratives we create around fear can either confine us or set us free, depending on how we choose to engage with them. As we conclude this segment, keep in mind that fear is universal, but our responses to it are deeply personal. If you want to keep exploring these themes and more, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the complexities of fear. Until next time, remember to embrace the stories that shape you, and don't shy away from the fears that define your path.